It's me.
Hi everybody, I'm Sam, and as you know, I am not a photographer. I'm just a guy who loves Photoshop. And you may not know this, but I have one other passion in life, and that's Pokemon. I am a Pokemon fiend. I play every game, walk around all day playing Pokemon Go, can't get enough of it. And I'm sure even if you're not a fan of Pokemon, you know what they are, you can't avoid them. And recently, people have taken to making these realistic versions of Pokemon, and they all have one thing in common. They're all extremely creepy. So today, I'm going to try my hand at it. I'm going to show you how to make realistic looking Pokemon like an amateur. Let's go. And as a quick side note, in my last video we did so well at getting Microsoft to sponsor us. So this time, Pokemon Company, Nintendo, if you're watching this, how about you throw a little moolah my way? Here's my Venmo. Okay, so I've opened up Photoshop, and we're just going to start real simple, with one that everyone knows, which is Bulbasaur. Now look at Bulbasaur, and what do you see? It's a frog with an onion on its back. So here I have a frog and an onion. And we're going to put those together. So first we're just going to select this frog. We're going to put it on our working space right there. And I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the elliptical marquee tool and just select out a little area of this frog. Make sure I get those bumps. And I'm going to copy that as a new layer, but I'm going to hide it for now. I don't need it. So let's start first with the frog. Bulbasaur isn't quite this color. So what are we going to do? Hue saturation. And my favorite button, colorize. And let's just find a hue that works pretty well. It's kind of like this teal, almost blue. We can bring up the saturation and bring up the lightness. He's a little lighter, isn't he? Okay, so now we have that, but it really looks like we just spilled a carton of paint, a bucket of paint on a frog, and that's not what we want. So we're going to make a couple adjustments with the brush. Make sure it's set on black, bring up the size a bit, and I'm going to zoom in just so I can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to make the eye not be affected by the colorize layer. And the other thing about Bulbasaur is it has these spots that are different colored, a little more green. So I'm going to use things on this frog that look like spots. And I'm just going to make them not affected by that layer. Nice. And we'll go through and do a couple more. Using things on the frog that look like they could be a different color. And we'll end with the little nose holes. There, that looks good. So now we add, of course, the onion. I will just select it again. We don't need to worry about the bottom because we're just going to get rid of that. And we'll resize it a bit, get it where we want it. I might zoom out. It's going to be on the back. We want to rotate it a little bit. There we go. That seems just about good. And we're not quite done. I need to make this onion look like it's part of the Bulbasaur. So first what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to lower the opacity so I can see through the onion. I can see where on the frog I'll be. And I'm going to grab the eraser tool. And I'm just going to erase. There we go. That seems about right. Maybe I'll move it a bit just so it's like in line. I can use the arrow keys with the little leg there. That looks good. I'm going to raise the opacity again. And now I'm going to change the color of the onion. But see what happens if I hit colorize right now is everything gets colorized again. So instead I'm going to clip it just to the layer right below it, which is right there. And you know what, I'm going to do the same thing with this other layer. I'm going to drag it above here and I'm going to clip it. That way it only affects the frog, and this one will only affect the onion. Now the onion is a little brighter green, more true green, you know, kind of like that, maybe a little darker. There we go. And that's looking decent. That's looking pretty good. The only thing is the onion is very smooth. We got a smooth onion here, but this frog is bumpy. So what I'm going to try to do now is add this layer that I cut out earlier. I'm going to try to add the texture to this onion. So first, I'm going to make it big. I'm going to make it cover the entire onion. And yes, this is going to look weird. There we go. I'm just going to hit click. But now what I'm going to do is change the blend mode to something that'll make maybe overlay, soft light, hard light, not hard light. If we take overlay, but now we take the opacity and bring it down a little bit. There. Now it looks like the frog bumps are on the onion. And yes, it looks terrifying, but that's kind of the point. So there's our first one, Bulbasaur, the first Pokemon in the Pokédex. And I'll put it in an environment so it looks even more real. Show your friends this picture, they'll totally believe you saw this out in the wild. This is the most realistic depiction you'll ever see of any sort of Pokemon. Okay, and now for our next Pokemon. Where do we go after a frog? Obviously we go to eggs. We're talking execute here. And see, the thing is, eggs don't normally stand up like that, and they don't normally have faces. That's not realistic, and we're trying to be as realistic as possible. So we're going to start with a carton of eggs, and I'm going to select them and bring them over. Here we go. And we're going to make them a little bigger, just so we can work with it. Now here's the thing about execute, is the eggs are actually pink, not brown. So we're going to go to hue saturation, colorize it again, and find a nice shade of pink. So this looks purple. All you gotta do is make it a bit lighter. Maybe a bit more red. Nice. And that's nice and pink. Now, the issue is the carton is not supposed to be pink. Clearly, we're trying to be realistic here. So I'm going to go ahead, take our brush, and paint out the pink. So now we got a carton of pink eggs, but they need faces. But here's the thing about eggs, is they don't really have faces. So what we're going to do is actually cut out faces. I think that's going to look neat. And eggshells are very fragile, so we're going to make it crack a little bit, kind of like a jack-o'-lantern. We're going to make sure this layer is selected, not this layer. So first we got an eye. There we go. And all we're going to do is delete it. And another eye over here. And we're going to again delete it. And lastly, a mouth. And delete. And now we have a nice broken egg. It doesn't really look real. The inside of an egg isn't going to be white. So what I'm going to do is actually create a new layer here, put it underneath this layer, and I'm just going to draw all the way around these eggs. And I'm going to fill that layer with a color that I pick. And it's just going to be a darker version of this, I think. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to take the dark and I'm going to bring it down so it's nice and dark. And it looks like the inside of an egg. We're going to hit OK. And it's being affected by this hue saturation level. So let's just clip that again. Great, we have our first egg. Now we're just going to do this a couple more times. I've already done it ahead of time, so I'm going to switch over to that one, which might look a little different. The cracks in the egg, they don't crack the same time every time. So I've also added in, if you can look really closely, some little shadow parts just to make it look a little more 3D, super realistic. Now I'm sure these eggs are already giving you nightmares, but I think they're missing one thing, and that's what's inside the egg, which is an egg yolk. So we're going to go ahead and select it. And bring that bad boy over. Let's go ahead and Control V. Nice. A little too big, but we're going to make it small. And we want to make sure that the yolk is in between the egg layer and the underneath layer. So it kind of comes through. We're going to make it a little smaller. And there he is inside there. I think that looks pretty nice. So we'll go ahead and hit that. And we just want to duplicate that layer and move it over to where we can see it again. And we'll make this guy a little smaller because that egg's a little further away. There. Now, if you're not terrified yet, I don't know what's going to make you terrified. And like our Bulbasaur, we want to put our execute in a realistic environment. So here it is. Okay, so we've done a frog, we've done eggs. That's all easy. Those are real things. So let's go a little more extreme. And let's go with our friend Magnemite. This silver ball with some magnets as its hands. Let's start with the silver ball. And we'll bring that over. And we'll just make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to copy that layer, but I'm going to hide it for now, just like we did with the Bulbasaur. Now next, we're going to go ahead and put in the little screws it has. Bring that over and we'll duplicate it. Let's hide that for now because we need 2 of them. So let's go ahead and change the size of this because it's obviously way too big. Make it nice and small, see where it wants to go, and we'll change the angle a little bit. That seems good. And let's move the other one into position. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to edit and flip horizontally. That way it's facing the other way, and we have more to work with. We want to make it about the same size as this screw, but we want it pointing this way, I think. There we go. Now these screws just look like they're floating. So we're going to zoom in and we're going to take our eraser, make it nice and small, and just erase the screw till it looks like it's screwed in. That looks pretty good there. And that looks pretty good there. And so now, of course, our Magnemite needs its little top screw. So we will take this and bring it over. Give him a little hat. And I think with this also we're going to want to edit and flip it horizontally. Not a huge change, but it's enough. And we want to actually put this behind our metal ball and put him right there. You know, that doesn't look too bad. Maybe it's a bit big. We'll bring him down a little bit, curve him a little bit this way. But that looks pretty nice, I think. So next we have the magnet hands. That's going to be easy enough. We'll kind of do the same process. You select the magnet and bring over the magnet, but this one we do want to put kind of in front of everything. There it is. And we want to twist him, bring him over here, make him a little smaller. Magnemite doesn't need hands that are that big. And we'll just kind of put it in position. Maybe right about there. Seems nice. There we go. And now we want to make another one of those layers. We'll go ahead and let's transform, and we'll flip it horizontal again. And then we'll just bring it into position. This one we do actually want to put it behind that layer, so it's sitting back on the other side. And we'll change it, make it smaller. Maybe change the angle a little bit. That looks pretty good. So we have everything, but it's not quite there. It's missing something. It's missing the most important part of a Magnemite, and that's its giant eye. It needs to be able to see, right? But we have to be realistic here. So we're gonna take my eye, and let's zoom in a little bit, and we'll just go ahead, take our wand, and select my eye here. And we'll bring it over, and make sure it's up here. There, a nice looking eye. Put it right in the center there, make it nice and large, because our Magnemite needs to be able to see, is the thing. There we go. And we're going to want to colorize it. Just this layer though, so we're going to clip it. And what we want to do is just bring the saturation all the way down. Match this color pretty nicely. But we want that color still in the middle of the eye. So we take our brush, make it a bit bigger, and add some color back. And while we're at it, let's add some color back to the rest of the eye. Oh yeah, that's looking super disturbing. That's exactly what we want. So now I'm going to take the eraser, and I want to make this kind of blend in a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the flow, bring it down maybe to 50%, and I'm going to take smoothing and bring it up a little bit. And now we're just going to paint along the edges. I'm going to bring the hardness all the way down. And the flow even a little lower. And we just want to get rid of all these hard edges. I might leave some of the eyelashes in. I think that's kind of neat. And there we go. Now this looks almost perfect, but the screws look a little too smooth. The eye, well, it looks like an eyeball, and we want to of course make this realistic. So we're going to turn this layer 1 copy back on, and we're going to make it just large, and it's going to take over the entire image. There we go. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put soft light over it this time. And we'll bring the opacity down just a bit, because that's kind of extreme. Mostly looking at the eye here. And then we don't need it to overlap on the ball itself, because we already have that. So we'll just take our eraser and erase where we don't need it. And let's look at the before and after of that. See, it's very smooth here. This just makes it a little more textured, a little better. And now we have our extremely realistic Magnemite. And with this too, we'll put it in a realistic environment. Here you go. So there you have it, my 3 Pokemon. The most realistic you'll ever see. Now I know this video was a little different. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I'd really like to do it again. Next time with Generation 2 Pokemon. If you have suggestions, you have a Pokemon you want me to make super realistic, let me know in the comments. Please like, please subscribe, and please don't have too many nightmares from the horrible abominations I've created today. See you next time. I gotta go catch 'em all.